Hey, it's Andrew Siciliano coming up on our Inside Coverage Week 14 preview show. Why this Bears-Packers game is the biggest in the NFL's greatest rivalry in 20 years. Also coming up, is this the final shot for the Chiefs to save their season? Does anyone win the AFC North? And a stunning stat about Lamar Jackson that shows he is not the same. It's Charles Robinson, it's Ben Fawkes, it's me. Inside Coverage next. I think this is going to be the best weekend of the year. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to say it right now. 2 weeks ago, I thought it was the best schedule of the year. I think this week, Week 14, is the best schedule of the year. And with that, we welcome you to a Week 14 preview edition. We're taping this on Thursday before TNF edition of Inside Coverage on Yahoo. My name is Andrew Siciliano. This is the how and the why, any and everything you need to know about the National Football League. And yes, I'm wearing a hat today. It is a lazy hat Thursday. It is one of those days for me. But I want you to know that I was inspired. I feel comfortable wearing this hat because Charles Robinson always wears his Tigers hat. And so, Charles, thank you for giving me the confidence to put my best foot forward today.
I've worn this hat for years. So what is that? If it's lazy hat Thursday for you, what does that mean?
No, it's part of your uniform. Hey, full disclosure, it's been one of those days where you're running errands, you're bumming around the house, and then you're like, do I really have to hop in the shower? No, I'm going to put a hat on. Full disclosure.
You look great.
That's just, maybe that's too much information. But either way, fantastic. Charles, thank you for giving me that confidence. And Ben Fawkes, our gambling expert. Ben, hold up that glass, will you please? Last week, you had a glass that looked like brown liquor. You denied it. That looks like it could be tequila. Blanco, is it?
No, it's some Trader Joe's seltzer, but could be. There could be tequila in there. We'll keep it, you never know. I was also going to say, it took me half the season to get on the group chat, and no hats were mentioned for this show. So maybe there's another side chat I'm not part of where I didn't get that.
I've been told, and this is the truth, that hats are acceptable. They just have to be forward facing. Like if I were to turn this hat around, you can. Like Stallone in Over the Top.
Yes, I love that reference.
That would cross a line. But as long as my hat is facing forward, my Syracuse hat, then we are good to go. And Ben, I hope you know that if you were to move to California, Trader Joe's, free advertising here, has its own tequila. In California, Trader Joe's has hard alcohol with their label on it. Look at the look on your face there, buddy. Yeah.
I didn't know that when I was in college in California. Didn't go. You went to Costco for the alcohol, but that's a different story.
People shopping at Trader Joe's in college.
Trader Joe's has single malt scotch. Just saying, with their label on it. All right, let's get to the football because I really do think this is the best week of the year. You can make an argument that every single game in Week 14 has either playoff implications, playoff elimination scenarios, or in the case of the Titans and the Browns, and that is an elimination game. If the Browns lose, they're officially out. We're talking about potentially teams fighting for the number one overall pick. It is an 8-game early, 3-game late, 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock Eastern week. There are 4 teams on byes. This is the final week for byes, and I mean it this time. Panthers, Giants, Patriots, and the 49ers. There are 7 divisional games. It's that time of year. And there are, get this, and this is why I truly do believe it is the best week of the year, at least so far. There are 6 games on the schedule this week, not the docket, not the slate, because those are sportscaster words that nobody has ever used in a real sentence between human beings in a bar. But 6 games on the schedule this week between teams that are 500 or better, including, drum roll please, we don't have a drum roll, that costs extra, the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. Let's get to that as we do the 5 games that mean the most to us. Not every game, but the ones that we find the most interesting in the aforementioned group chat. The Bears are 9-3, the Packers are 8-3-1. This is the 1 seed Yes, the 1 seed in the NFC against the 6 seed in the NFC, or the 1 and the 2 in the division of the NFC North, with Kevin Burkhardt, Tom Brady, Aaron Andrews, and Tom Rinaldi on the call. They're going to play twice here in 3 weeks. They're in Chicago again, week 17. For me, guys, and I did have the opportunity to cover this when I was a much younger reporter, this is the best rivalry in the NFL. It's kind of gone dormant at times, long stretches, actually, but the juice is back in this thing. And if you don't believe me that the juice is back, the records will tell you that story. I want to go back, if we could, to Ben Johnson's introductory press conference. Does anybody remember this?
I wanted to stay in this division. I know this is the toughest division of football right now. There's 3 teams that made the playoffs this year. I've got tremendous amount of respect for the coaches and the players in this league. Having competed against them for the last 6 years. Dan Campbell, Kevin O'Connell, you're talking about 2 guys that are up for Coach of the Year awards as the season ends here. And to be quite frank with you, I kind of enjoyed beating Matt LaFleur twice a year.
Where'd that come from? When Matt LaFleur was asked about it a couple of days later, or a couple of weeks, whenever he was next on a podium, it was January, he basically said, yeah, I don't know the guy. I don't know the guy. I love, Charles, I love that he leaned into the rivalry, right? Yeah. Ditka and Forrest Gregg and all the great stories over the years. I love that you leaned into it, but don't think that Matt LaFleur doesn't remember that.
Oh, not just Matt, by the way. This summer when I was going through camps, obviously Matt LaFleur, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, there's a ton of coaches, right? All kind of have all circulated really from that tree. They all know each other really well. And I was passing through one camp. I'm not going to air out who it was because obviously this was something that, was not meant for his name to be attached to it. But he asked me, hey, you going through Chicago later in your trip? And I said, no, I'm not. I said, I wish I could, obviously Ben Johnson being there, everyone's really excited. And he asked me, so what do you think of that guy? He said, have you ever met him? You ever talked to him? I said, I've never done one-on-ones, but, I've kind of been in group with him before. I've heard him talk. I said, he's kind of interesting. And I said, what do you think? And this is an offensive-minded guy. And he basically said, he felt like Ben got a little big for his britches to walk in there and basically take a shot at Matt the way that he did. And it wasn't just Matt that noticed it. I think Kyle Shanahan noticed it. I think Sean McVay noticed it. I think a number of people inside that tree noticed it. And I think they talked about it after it happened because Ben is not really a known commodity other than his work, in terms of like friendships, time spent together, obviously commingling inside the coaching ranks. There's not a ton of connection there to Ben. So I think there was a lot of curiosity about how he could just walk into that Chicago franchise and basically take a shot at who really the guy other than, Kevin O'Connell's been great. Dan Campbell's been great. But in terms of the longest track record, the guy who's dealt with different quarterbacks and in his tenure there, Matt has earned respect amongst his peers. And I think some people took umbrage to Ben Johnson saying what he did. And I think there are some coaches around the league that would like to see Ben kind of get his clock cleaned a little bit here after making the comment that he ultimately did. That was not taken lightly, even though Matt didn't expound on it and others did not. I can tell you, I know it was definitely talked about in their circles.
Well, the question is are they going to clean their clock? And Caleb does not complete a lot of passes. Matter of fact, he has the worst completion percentage in the NFL. Yet this team finds a way to win. They've won 9 out of 10. They've won, 5 or 6 in a row. They lead the NFL in takeaways, but the Packers have the fewest giveaways. So you have a Bears defense that gives up all kinds of yardage, but they take the ball away. And that's how they're setting up their great run game. And they're setting up Caleb to make enough plays. If Jordan Love, who, dare I remind you, had 4 touchdowns on Thanksgiving Day. If Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs, who is back, and Dontavian Wicks, who had a great game, probably a career game on Thanksgiving, if they don't turn the ball over, they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting, too, when you look at the Bears, I don't know what's going on with scouting, but how Kyle Monangai is the 233rd pick in the draft and looks the way that he looks on the field for the Chicago Bears.
Not that big.
I mean, but he runs big, right? I mean, he absolutely runs. Yeah. He runs bigger than he presents. And not only, I mean, he did it for, he had a track record at Rutgers. It wasn't like it was a one-hit wonder. And
Dude
to me,
never fumbled. You know that? He's never fumbled.
Is that right? I did not know.
So I did a Rutgers game last year for NBC. Sorry, I cut you off. So it was near the end of the season. It was the stunning Illinois Altmaier to Pat Bryant almost walk-off winner. And we talked the entire game. Kyle Monangai has never fumbled. He still hasn't fumbled in his rookie season. So to your point, Charles, he's a bowling ball that runs over people and never turns the ball over.
And he gives them really, I think, I talked to you last week about, hey, I want to find, who's the piece, who's the guy that they can, lean into when we get into these playoffs and when you get into tough situations. I point at Rome Odunze, but honestly, if we're sitting here and we're talking about what makes that Bears offense go, particularly with Caleb not having a great, completion percentage, it's having your version of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Kyle Monangai and DeAndre Swift are quite on that level, but they definitely power that offense in a similar way when used in unison together. We've seen what they're able to do. That definitely carries Caleb. I still worry, though. There's worry about Caleb's, ability to complete passes when it's absolutely necessary. If this is a tight game in the fourth quarter, that makes me a little nervous, although I feel like he raises his game. Another thing, too, Ozzie Trapilo, left tackle, rookie. I got to believe if you're the Green Bay Packers, you're sitting there and going, okay, the Chicago Bears offensive line is rebuilt. It's been done well. But if there's a guy that we're going to scheme and try to attack and see if we can get hits, it's going to be against a rookie left tackle. So that's definitely a matchup I would watch, is how they scheme to match up one-on-ones with Ozzie Trapilo on the left side.
What do you think here, Ben? We're cutting you off. Go ahead. Get in here.
No, there's I got plenty on the Bears because their fans weren't happy with me, like I said last week when posting that they were the worst 8-3 team by DVOA ever. Well, yes, now they're the worst 9-3 team by DVOA ever. Look, the stats are the stats. I think it's also interesting that, as Aaron said, there's only two other teams that he's tracked that were 9-3 with a negative DVOA: the 2004 Falcons and the 2012 Bears. Right, so the advanced stats do not like them. I think this is what we've seen, right? Packers are 5th in DVOA. The Bears are still 19th. Odds makers also kind of have a similar conundrum. I asked several this week, basically, where they have the Bears, and it was anywhere. I think there was an 11th, there was in the teens, there was 15th, and there was 17th, right? And so this is after, obviously, beating that Eagles team. And I think coming into that game, the argument you could make was, hey, the Bears you can only play who's on your schedule. They've had a lot of close wins over teams that, let's say, maybe the Patriots, as we just saw them beat the Giants, they dominated a lesser team. Whereas for the most part, the Bears haven't done that. Have they won the games? Yes, they have, but they haven't been crushing teams in that same way. And so you say, hey, a lot of those are kind of 50-50 games. They've been forcing a lot of turnovers. And at some point, that's going to come back to bite you. I think the same thing with Caleb Williams. He has, I believe, he has 13 turnover-worthy throws and only 5 interceptions, right? He has 5 fumbles. He's lost none of them. So all of these things by DY, all the numbers, I won't go into all the acronyms. He's 22nd, 24th, yards per attempt, 21st. So their offense, because of that offensive line, as we saw against Philadelphia, and the rushing attack, and that defense, which, to be fair, has been very injured and now is starting to get healthy and has played well and obviously forced all those turnovers, you're kind of in between this rock and a hard place a bit. And as a result, it's a little surprising, I think, that the Packers in this game are 6.5-point favorites. And that's basically what the look-ahead line was last week, right? So it hasn't really changed too much, even though the Bears won that game. And the public is all over the Bears, which is kind of surprising. One of the first times, obviously, seeing what they saw against the Eagles. I think that's the biggest thing. Only other thing, under 5-1 at Lambeau Field right now. No game has gone over 45 points. The total in this game, 44.5 points. So kind of figuring that out. And then there was one giant bet on the Bears. Just got confirmation today. It was right after that game, $50,000 on the Bears at 66-1 last Friday, which would win $3.3 million at BetMGM. So the Bears won. It was a bettor in Illinois. The bettor made that bet, and then BetMGM moved the odds after that. So at least one person believes in the Bears a whole lot more than Frank or I do.
What Bears fans, what Ben is saying is the Bears have been lucky. That's what Ben's trying to get to. You've been lucky.
In essence, yes. I think we have a very difficult time in the social media era of holding two truths at the same time. You can't take away the wins the Bears have had. That's why they're going to make the playoffs, possibly win the division, and possibly, unlikely, be the number one seed. Yes. They've also been lucky. And Caleb Williams, I think, and probably Bears fans would admit, has not advanced maybe as much as they would have hoped in year two. Just comparing, let's say, Drake May from last year to this year, Caleb Williams does not look like a top 10 quarterback. He can do the amazing things, but some of the layups always seem to be something is off in the timing or slant patterns or this. His completion percentage shouldn't be just a little bit higher than J.J. McCarthy. I think he's 38th out of 39th quarterback. So something is off there, whether that's the receivers, whether that's coaching, whether that's he's holding the ball too long. He hasn't made, I think, that leap. But despite that, they are winning those games. So I think both things are true.
Yeah. And you know what, Bears fans, enjoy it. Like, if you want to do a deep dive on the analytics, they are what they are. They say what they say. You really can't deny that. But enjoy it. They're winning. It's the Packers this week. Like, lean into it. And in 2 weeks, you get them again at Soldier Field on a Saturday in a national TV window. Like, enjoy it. But to your point about Caleb, again, last in completion percentage, if the Bears finish as the 1 seed, this would be the very first time that the 1 seed, since 1975 when they started doing this, ever had a quarterback with the lowest completion percentage in the NFL.
That's crazy.
Ever. It's never happened. This is the 209th Bears-Packers matchup, and only the second time in the Super Bowl era that they meet with both teams 5 or more games above 500. So this game truly, truly is that good. All right, that's game number 1. We're going to move faster, I promise, Madison. Game number 2, the Indianapolis Colts are 8-4. The Jaguars are 8-4. This is an AFC South battle with the 6 seed visiting the division leader, the 3 seed. The winner takes over the number 1 spot in the division. Jaguars have it right now because they have the common games tiebreaker, but they are both 2-1 in the division, and they play again coming up week 17 in Indianapolis. To me, this really comes down to run defense. The Jaguars, and most people on the street, I'm guessing even in Jacksonville, don't know that the Jaguars right now have the best run defense in football. They're giving up only 82.4 yards a game. Obviously, you might have heard of this guy named Jonathan Taylor. He's leading the NFL in rushing still, and rushing touchdowns and scrimmage touchdowns and all of that. And you have a quarterback that has a broken leg. So you take away the run game from Daniel Jones. Jaguars don't have to worry about that. And they can load the box and try to stop Jonathan Taylor. They've been pretty good at stopping other running backs. Trevor Lawrence still turns the ball over too much, but he had a streak of a month where he had a pick in every game. He didn't throw a pick last week. He maybe played his best game of the year, not statistically, but cleanest game of the year. Guys, I have no idea what the line is because I don't look at that. I do know that Ian Eagle, J.J. Watt, and Evan Washburn are calling it, and I'm kind of slowly but surely, C-Rob, getting on Team Jacksonville here, and I'm kind of leaning, although it's a slight lean, towards the Jaguars.
Yeah, look, here's the thing. You talk about their run defense. The one thing I will point out, let's go back to their bye week. Since their bye week, they've played Las Vegas. It's not a good run team. Houston Texans, not an efficient run team. Los Angeles Chargers, banged up, right, in the backfield. Not great run team. Arizona, Tennessee. That's who you've played since the bye week. There's no rushing juggernauts. in any of those, right? And so to me, this is the challenge. Fair. Now you face the Colts. Everybody knows what they're bringing to the table. Daniel Jones, we're seeing the tilt now. We're starting to see the listing of the ship where we're like, okay, what are we going to do here? You've lost 3 of 4. It feels like some slippage here. You have to, if you're the Colts, though, as you said, I agree with you. It's going to come down to Jonathan Taylor. I think you got to get back to what you were doing fundamentally at the start of the season. We're looking at Jonathan Taylor. We're saying 2 things. Number one, this looks like at times the best offensive line in football. In spaces, in multiple weeks, we looked at the Colts and said this offensive line is absolutely destroying teams. And Jonathan Taylor was taking advantage of it. He looked like an MVP candidate. Now that's started to shift. And, we got into the middle of the schedule. Daniel Jones starts to turn the ball over, show some flaws. There's health issues with the Colts. I agree. I think that is a huge matchup. And then I think, in terms of the Jaguars, the one thing that makes me a little nervous here is we know Travis Hunter's gone, right? But Parker Washington become that huge piece for them on offense. Now he's banged up. There's question about, how healthy is he? Is he going to be able to play? And you now have to lean back into Brian Thomas Jr., who has had I'll just say it, I think he's had a miserable second season in the NFL. Last year, he looked like he was going to be a breakout superstar, a number 1 wide receiver for Jacksonville, potentially a top, 5, 6, 7 wide receiver in the league. Instead, he's been the opposite. He's looked like he's afraid to catch the ball sometimes in traffic, took some big hits early in the year. He's got to come up big, I think, in this game. It's going to be a huge factor, I think, for Trevor Lawrence, particularly if Parker Washington isn't playing.
Yeah, we just put up the injury report. Obviously, that's a full graphic right there for the Jaguars on the injury report.
That's a full screen. Yep,
that is as many players I think as you can put in there. So obviously a lot there. The Colts are 1.5 point favorite in Jacksonville, where I don't think they've won in almost a decade. It's been forever. Obviously, this different team. I think interesting, as C-Rob pointed out, the Jaguars have been hot. But you also see who they've played and kind of how they've won. That Tennessee game, they won 25-3. They're pretty much in control after coming out early. They beat Arizona 27-24 in overtime, the game they tried to give away. They dominated the Chargers, which, again, very impressive. They somehow then blew a 29-10 lead the week before to Davis Mills. It wasn't even C.J. Stroud against Houston. And then they beat the Raiders when they stopped a 2-point conversion in overtime. Davis
Mills, man.
So, sorry, I know. Tough for Davis Mills, the Davis Mills hive that's out there. But they've been this Jekyll and Hyde team a bit. And again, still have won those games. And in a different tangent, thankfully as well, unlike the Falcons, right? Because they don't have that first round pick with that Travis Hunter deal. There's a way this could look a whole lot worse if they lose those games. All of a sudden they're 4-8. And now that pick is a lot higher for the Browns. So, at least they have that. This is going to be a little bit of a referendum. And I think we've seen with the Colts,
definitely,
obviously that offensive line, better run blocking than pass blocking. And they have lost some of those close games against better teams the last few weeks. They really have. I thought it was a couple of good points in the article that the Colts reporter on ESPN.com had. They were averaging 7.2 yards per play on first downs through week 8. But just 6 yards per play since then. So in other words, setting up more 3rd and long, 2nd and long, 3rd and long, haven't been able to run the ball as well. And it was one of, the shocking injury updates when we heard Daniel Jones had a fractured fibula, followed by, and he is going to play. And so you don't know what that means or what that looks like. Now we have a data point. We've seen it in a game. And he attempted just one pass outside of the pocket in that game. I think a lot of that Colts rushing attack, right? Why was it so successful with Anthony Richardson as well? It's because he can run the ball too, and you have this RPO action. Well, now if Daniel Jones is just that pocket passer, that's a completely different offense. Not to mention Sauce Gardner injured on defense, and they've really missed DeForest Buckner on defense as well. So they've had kind of all those things. They've had to replace their kicker. They seem to be one of those teams right now that's like, if you were awarding the Super Bowl back in October or November, they're the team. But did they have enough of a lead that they can sustain it and still make the postseason? This is a really, it's two-way action betting this game. The Jaguars are 4-1 ATS at home. It's kind of just who do you like between this? It's basically a toss-up. Do you like a fading Colts team, or a Jaguars team we're not exactly sure kind of who they are.
Yeah, I wish they did award the Super Bowl back in September. That would be cool.
We try. Every year we try.
Yeah, exactly.
Browns would have won
MVP,
one or
Super
two.
Bowl
Yeah.
each month.
Would have been amazing. The Colts are averaging nearly 30 points a game still, like 29.8. But since their bye, and Charles pointed out, the offenses that the Jags have been facing, it has not been that difficult. Since their bye, the Jags, at least offensively, their own offense, they're averaging 29 points a game. Small sample size, but at least you have the Jaguars, and it is somewhat schedule dependent, kind of on the rise here. This is a test for them. And again, they're going to play another time in a couple of weeks. So this is the first of a scheduled 2. Coming up here on Inside Coverage, we continue with our Week 14 preview by looking at the other team in the AFC South, the Texans, as they go to Kansas City. The Chiefs can't be eliminated, but for all intents and purposes, this is a must-win. That's coming up next. It's Inside Coverage on Yahoo. We're continuing with our Week 14 preview show. Andrew Siciliano, C-Rob, Charles Robinson, and his Magnum PI hat, and Ben Fawkes here as well. I mentioned the Browns could be eliminated. They play the Titans. There are 5 teams. So 5 teams already out. Before we get to this next game, let me just lay it out. There are 5 teams with elimination scenarios this week. So we could be in a position next Monday where we already have 10 teams out. Like, we're down to 22 left. That's it. So the Browns lose and they're out. The Jets lose to the Dolphins and they're out. There are other scenarios there with ties and other stuff where they could be eliminated. Washington, if it loses, is out. Washington plays Seattle, if memory serves. No, Atlanta plays Seattle. So if Atlanta loses, Atlanta's out. It's Washington, Minnesota going head to head, and the loser there is eliminated. They both could be out. There are other things that could get either one of them out if they win, but those are the 5 teams: Cleveland, New York, Washington, Minnesota, and Atlanta that all face elimination. That was clear as mud. There'll be a test later. Let's get to the third game we're previewing this week, and we're going to go right to Sunday night. We've been waiting all week for Sunday night. The 7-5 Texans, the 6-6. How odd does that sound? Kansas City Chiefs. It is the 8 seed on the road at the 11 seed in the American Football Conference with Tarico Collinsworth and Melissa Stark on the call. It is a rematch of last year's divisional round. Remember, Chiefs won that game, obviously, and moved on to the AFC Championship game. We can give you all kinds of stats about how Mahomes is playing, about how the Texans are playing. It really comes down to this for me. We know what the Texans' defense can do. You could argue that they have the best defense in the NFL right now. They're number 1 in total, and they're number 1 in scoring defense, and they have held opposing quarterbacks to the lowest passer rating in the league. They're going to get after Mahomes, and there's no one there this week, C-Rob. Here's the story of the week: to protect Patrick Mahomes. Josh Simmons is out. He's got a wrist injury. The rookie left tackle is on IR. Injury concerns for Trey Smith likely out. Jawan Taylor as well. You could be down 3/5 of a starting offensive line against Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter with Matt Burke just going, go after that guy. And that, to me, is the story of this game. The records and who needs to win for the divisions, whatever. They're going to get after Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think the Chiefs can protect him.
Well, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I know Chiefs fans for years have been pissed off because I just keep bringing it up. This would be a nice time to be able to run the football, right? You got problems with the offensive line. You know the opposing defense is going to be going after Patrick Mahomes. By the way, Will Anderson, one of, I think, the most underrated defenders in the NFL now. Absolutely blossomed into a star in Houston. I've said it before. I'm going to keep repeating it ad nauseum. The Kansas City Chiefs continue to fail to fix the running game. It shifts all this burden onto Mahomes. And then when Mahomes is getting hit, teams are, going after him. If something functionally in the skill positions amongst the receivers or Travis Kelce isn't perfect, all of a sudden you're seeing the Chiefs have problems. And look, I'm just going to go back to the last 4 games. Last 4 games, all decided by a touchdown or less. The last 3 points or less, right? They win one of those games. They go 1-3 in the last 4. The 3 they lost, their high rushing mark was Kareem Hunt, 49 yards against the Buffalo Bills, loss. Kareem Hunt, 59 yards against the Denver Broncos, loss. Kareem Hunt, 59 yards against the Dallas Cowboys, loss. You have to find some balance if you're the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. Like, I know, Andrew, you counted him out a while ago and you regretted it. I didn't. I did not regret it. I think that this is it. I think you can stick a fork in them. I do not see this team turning around and coming back. They should have given up what they needed to give up to get Breece Hall at the trade deadline so that they could balance out the offense, make it more explosive from the running standpoint, particularly lean into a running game when you're having some injuries on the offensive line. Didn't happen. You pay the piper, and this is where you're at with the Kansas City Chiefs. By God, please, this offseason, please address the running back spot, and don't just do it with a retread or the same, Clydesdale. He pounds the, turf hard Isaiah Pacheco. Go get a dynamic, explosive running back and pair him a la Travion Henderson and Drake May. Give Patrick Mahomes a piece to work with in the backfield. Good God.
C-Rob coming in hot. I thought it was just Frank with the Bears, but I guess the Chiefs.
I've been saying this for so long.
Relationship for years.
It isn't just the back, though. It's really commit to a downhill run game from under center.
Sure. It's Andy. Andy Reid
just
as well,
commit
right?
to that.
It's Andy Reid as well.
We just had the Common Guy conversation. You don't need an A-list back. You don't even need Breece Hall. I would ask, if they got Breece Hall, would they use Breece Hall effectively? You have to ask that too.
I mean, that's you're right. That's an Andy question, right? Like, Andy, it's not the first time. It's not the first time in Andy's career where we've said, from a game management standpoint, can Andy, commit to the run, stick with it, and run a balanced offense? I agree with that. I think that's part of this as well. But look, I think it's a lot easier to commit to it when you have an explosive player who is bringing everything to the table that Andy Reid can utilize with that kind of a back. I mean, Travion Henderson with Andy Reid would be an unbelievably fun player to watch.
Yeah.
It's always tough too. Yeah, I would agree. I think it's always tough too when you have an elite quarterback. You're always going to end up on that 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. It doesn't work. Why didn't we have the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands, right, as opposed to running back X?
Yeah.
But they still need to invest in it. Andy Reid likes to run the football. And I totally agree. I think the biggest thing, from a week to week, year to year, is just the Kansas City Chiefs, when they were losing, the sports books basically had to have a different algorithm for them because people were always going to bet them. And when they got the ball last, Patrick Mahomes was going down the field and he was going to win the game. And you just don't feel that way this season in the same way when they're behind. It just doesn't feel like, oh, they're only down a certain number of points, they'll be fine. The offense just isn't the same. In this game, the look-ahead line was Chiefs -5.5 before the Thanksgiving games. This is now Chiefs -3.5 as a home favorite. Interesting as well, obviously, these two teams played in the playoffs last year. Just by comparison, that game was Chiefs -10, also at Arrowhead.
Wow.
So same two teams, same spot, 10. Now it's 3.5. And that also speaks to the Chiefs. They've lost 3 of 4 straight up. They've lost 4 straight games against the spread, which is just something you never think of as a Patrick Mahomes team. We compare them a lot beforehand to Tom Brady's Patriots. They were amazing against the spread. Mahomes hasn't been as good against the spread. He's been pretty good straight up. The Chiefs are only 5-7 against the spread this season. And the Texans are up to 8th in DVOA. The Chiefs are 6th. So Texans certainly rising. I think this is going to be a fascinating game. It's also the first week this season the Chiefs are favored to miss the playoffs as opposed to make it. They had the 4th best odds of any team before the season to make the postseason. So obviously a disappointing start so far. There's just been too much on Mahomes, and I think the Texans defense as well. They're not going to be scared going into Kansas City, and they have that pass rush. They also have the secondary behind it. And so if they have Rashee Rice back now, the Chiefs, they have Derek Stingley. They have other people who can also cover them, and they can marry that with a pass rush. I think this is a great spot to bet the Texans to at least cover, if not win this game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, close game, but it's hard to see that Texans defense not dominating. That's what they've done against just about every opponent the last few weeks, including Josh Allen.
Want to get back to that pressure thing. Obviously, we know the Texans, D'Amico Ryans, are going to come after a banged-up offensive line. Mahomes, right now, 41.2% completion rate when under pressure this year. It is not only the third lowest in the NFL this season, but it is the worst of Mahomes' career. And the playoff percentage, making the playoffs here, the swing is huge. If the Texans win, they go up to 84% chance they get in. And if that happens, the Chiefs, if they lose, it goes down to 11%. As it stands right now, if you take last year's division winners, all 8 of them, and the Chiefs obviously won the AFC West, the Chiefs, of those 8, the only team right now that is more than 2 games out of a playoff spot, either the 7th wild card seed or wild card spot, or the 7th seed, or a division lead. So the Chiefs are in by far the worst position of any playoff team from a year ago. Speaking of teams that don't look good compared to last year, but are still somehow in good playoff position, the AFC North game for the top of the AFC North between the Steelers and the Ravens, the first time they have played this year, in the 39th between Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh, is fascinating on so many levels. The Steelers are the 9 seed right now. They're below the cut line. And the Ravens are the 4 seed because they lead the AFC North. This is a Nansen Romo and Tracy Wolfson game, and the winner takes over the top of the division. Ravens have it now in the common games tiebreaker. They play again Week 18 in Pittsburgh, a game that could very well, if they do what they did last year, be part of a Saturday doubleheader. I'm just trying to figure this out yesterday. So last year they did the AFC North, the Saturday doubleheader on Week 18. I got a gut feeling they're going to do that again this year, but we could hold that until later. Lamar Jackson, 3 straight games without a passing touchdown. A lot of people point out that Isaiah likely fumbled the ball going across the goal line. That's not really fair to Lamar. I get it. But, guys, I got to give you the stat that has absolutely jumped off the page to me this week more than any other stat or any other note in any other game. Because all the focus has been on Aaron Rodgers, understandably, the broken nose, and he could be done and whatever. Let's look at Lamar. Lamar is averaging 5.8 carries and 29 rush yards a game this year. Okay, those are career lows. We know he isn't running. But this number blew me away. Lamar Jackson has not forced a missed tackle on any of his 20 design runs this year. Not a single missed tackle on any of the designed runs that Todd Monken dialed up the entire season. This is year 8. The previous 7 seasons, Lamar Jackson has more missed tackles on such designed runs than any other quarterback in the NFL. 104. He makes everybody miss. He always makes the first guy miss. He's Lamar Jackson. And when people say, well, his accuracy didn't look the same on Thanksgiving, I know it didn't. And you could point to the run stats. Okay, the Browns have bottled him up a couple of times. Maybe that has factored. No, he's not making anybody miss in the run game. And to me, C-Rob, this is a story here that is not getting enough attention. The Ravens are the better team. The Steelers' defense is awful. Their offense can't move the ball. Who knows who wins? I think the Ravens win. But what is going on with Lamar?
Well, it leads you to question how much is health manifested here, right? With any quarterback, especially quarterbacks that run, we know that as their career advances, you get diminishing returns from quarterbacks from a running standpoint. And I think it's less about age. Age certainly factors in, but a lot of it is hits. It's accrued hits over time. And then how do those hits begin to manifest themselves in the health of, your body below the waist? I remember at one point when Aaron Rodgers had seemed to have lost it with the New York Jets, and I was talking to an executive there. He said, listen, man, he's like every other quarterback who's got athleticism below the waist. Once he loses that, everything else tends to go with it pretty quickly. And, and when we had this conversation about this happens for athletic quarterbacks, whether they're running quarterbacks or they're evading quarterbacks, the guys who can use the lower half of their body to really make make their wealth in the league tend to suffer as they get to their, into their 30s and then obviously mid-30s. Lamar Jackson's been playing for a long time. I wonder if his hamstring health has lingered into, all the way into this portion of the season. Obviously missed time earlier in the year. Now there's an ankle issue that is keeping him out of practice. I just wonder, is he healthy? Is Lamar Jackson's health far worse than maybe what we know? And remember, he played at a much higher weight into the 2023 and then 2020 into the 2023 season. After the 2023 season, he slimmed down on purpose because he wanted to feel, he said, like himself again. He wanted to be able to move around, evade, run. And, the concern is, well, if you take some of that weight off, when you get hit, those hits, they end up registering differently. You can, there's more injury when you don't have just added weight and padding to keep yourself protected. Well, he's, again, playing at that slimmed down weight. And I just wonder if now we're seeing an accrual that's starting to take effect, and that's what's had the deep impact on his game over the course of the season. Because he does not look right. I will agree with that, whether it's from a throwing perspective or a running perspective. And I thought to myself, last year, sitting there and trying to figure out who I was going to, vote for MVP and going through all the cut-ups last year, he looks nothing like that player that I looked at last year and had such a hard time figuring out if it was he or Josh Allen who was deserving of the MVP.
And that stat, Andrew, that you pointed out kind of matches up with the eye test, too. There's a lot of times you're watching these games and it does seem like he's one-on-one on the outside with a linebacker or a corner, and they get him to the ground. And you're thinking, in past years, he'd at least get past that guy, right? And get a first down, get 7-8 yards, make it more. So Ravens in this game opened up about 6.5 point favorite, down to 5.5. Some sharp money on the Steelers. The Ravens actually down to 18th in DVOA. The Steelers are 13th, which, again, whether you believe in DVOA or not, a little surprising the Ravens are that far down. One odds maker I spoke to this week, still the Ravens third in his power ratings, which I thought was a little high, but kind of based off of, what they are on paper, their potential, all of that, wasn't ready to downgrade them enough. I think the Ravens we judge these teams also on a different curve, right? Like the Bills, like the Packers. That's why the Bears now are on a little bit of a different curve. The Bears over under was 8.5. They won 9 games already. They've kind of exceeded expectations. The Ravens over under was 11.5. That were one of the highest in the NFL. They don't look like that team. They're 4-8 against the spread. The Steelers are 5-7. And really outside of maybe the first 3 quarters against the Bills in week 1, and I think an impressive victory against the Bears, they just haven't looked like the same team. The Jets game was ugly. The Browns game was ugly. Both Browns games. The Vikings game was fine. They just haven't looked the same. And Lamar Jackson as well just isn't taking care of the football. That Bengals game, there were so many unforced turnovers where you're giving what ultimately ended up being a couple field goals as opposed to every touchdown for the Bengals. But a lot of that was Joe Burrow's rust, as opposed to where they're giving the ball to the other team. He just still has some of those kind of head-scratching turnovers that other quarterbacks aren't making, where after a couple of years, they learn, okay, 2 hands on the ball in the pocket when you're taking a sack to do that, as well as, like you said, the lessening of the running game and the inaccuracy in the pocket and kind of on the move. They just haven't looked like the same team. And that injury several weeks ago to Brandon Matabike in the middle, too, that defense just doesn't have the same high ceiling as it did before. So I think that was the start of kind of the closing of the Super Bowl window this year. But you expected the offense with Lamar Jackson healthy, and again, he hasn't necessarily been healthy, to have a certain kind of floor, and they've just been lower than I think we thought they would be this season.
Speaking of unforced errors, Madison, can we put the tweet up that we just showed there, the Lamar wow signal tweet? Not that it's, an alien from a different world, wow moment, wow signal. But my unforced error here, last line, Yaz of his career. That's a typo I just noticed. It should be years of his career. So that tweet has been up now for 2 hours. Congratulations, Andrew. Having the first 7 Yaz of his career. All right.
It's a new advanced stat.
Yeah. He has Yaz hands.
Yeah, turn the hat in. Turn the hat in. Syracuse is bouncing for that.
Can I turn it around? Yeah. This one is also kind of a wow. We touched on this with Brooke. Brooke Pryor 2 days ago. The Steelers 0 for 10 on passes of 20 or more air yards since week 9. 0 for 10. They have not completed a pass of 15 or more air yards in a month. A month! Man. So, I mean, you have two MVPs, Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers, two very different stages in their career. Granted, Lamar still has, we all agree, I think, a nice career ahead of him, and he won the MVP a year ago. The guy's amazing. Aaron Rodgers, this could be the final 5 games of his NFL career. But two teams with MVPs at quarterback here trying to figure out who they are, with the idea that one of them is likely going to win the division. But I almost feel like quoting Ricky Waters and saying, for who, for what? You're going to win it, but then what are you actually going to do with it? Coming up next, what are we going to do with the Bengals and the Bills? We'll tell you who we like in this one. And yeah, I'm telling you, there's a chance it's the Bengals that win the AFC North. That's next on Inside Coverage. It's Inside Coverage on Yahoo ahead of what I think, my money, and again, recreational purposes only, is the best week of the year, the best schedule of the year, with 6 games between 500 or better teams, 7 divisional games, and 5 teams facing elimination. Oddly enough, the 4-8 Bengals are not one of those teams facing elimination. If they win, they are going to be, barring a tie between the Ravens and the Steelers, still only 2 games back in the division with 4 to go. The Bengals are 4-8. The Bills are 8-4. This is a good game. It's on Fox. It's with Joe Davis and Greg Olsen and Pam Oliver. This is an early window game, one of the 8 games at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. If maybe you were asleep because of the L-tryptophan on the floor for Thanksgiving night, you didn't see Joe Burrow come back and look like Joe Burrow, and the Bengals defense, which is, to quote Peter Griffin, circus ugly this year. It is just awful. Awful by every metric, but yet they forced 5 turnovers. Lamar Jackson and Isaiah Likely and the Ravens were sloppy, and they all of a sudden look good and looked opportunistic and looked like a defense that, if it all of a sudden wakes up, can help Joe Burrow and the Bengals make a little bit of a run. Because remember, they made that run last year. They won their final 5 games and got to 9-8, but it was out of their hands with the Chiefs and the Broncos, and they sat there and they watched, and they didn't make the postseason when they needed help. To me, Charles, this game comes down to stopping the run, and the Bengals, regardless of the nice bump they had last week, cannot stop the run. It doesn't matter who plays quarterback. Yeah. They are awful. Their 31.2 points a game allowed is the worst in franchise history. They're giving up 153 a game on the ground, and the Bills are as good a running team as there is in the NFL. Even though we say that Josh Allen plays hero ball all the time, some of his hero ball has had to be, obviously, this year with his legs, because they run nearly 50% of the time. Buffalo runs 49.5% of the time, which is the most they have run the football since Josh Allen was this raw, inaccurate rookie as the 7th overall pick in 2018. That number kind of jumps off the page. They are running at the same clip that they did back in 2018 when Josh Allen was a rookie. But if the Bengals can't stop it, and C-Rob, I don't think they can. I don't care how well Joe Burrow is playing. I think the Bills win this one.
Yeah, I think, too, you have to be realistic. I mean, the Bills' skill position, especially the receivers, have not been great over the balance of the season. There's a reason why you lean into the run game, because you're just far more proficient. James Cook has been a revelation the last couple of seasons. One of the best running backs in football, no question about that.
Carrying my fantasy team.
Yeah, carrying a lot of fantasy teams at this stage. But, look, Dalton Kincaid's been banged up. Keon Coleman, it's like, he's been benched at times, healthy scratch. So you lean into the running game. I'm with you. I don't think the Bengals defense, I just don't believe in the Bengals defense. I'm sorry, but you are what you are, especially when you get into December. And there can be exceptions, right? And, something that Ben talked about earlier in the show about the Bears and turnovers. You can have games where you turn the ball over. You can even have a spate of games where you turn the ball over, but you cannot survive as a defense expecting that to be a regular thing. To me, I just keep focusing on the schedule here. If you're the Bengals, you're sitting there and you're staring at this game, and I think you're staring at next week against the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, this kind of feels like it's it. The next 2 weeks, to me, I think if the Bengals have to feel like, hey, if we can boat race the next two games, if we can beat the Bills, obviously in the Bills' house, let's see what the weather looks like. I'm very curious to know what that feels like temperature will be come game time. But you win these next two games.
Look it up right now.
It's you got your final 3 games. You're at Miami, which look, Miami's playing better, but obviously extremely winnable game. You're home against Arizona. You're home against the Cleveland Browns at that stage. If you're the Bengals, you're sitting there and you're going, this is ours. It's sitting there. We can absolutely take this, but the next 2 week frame is going to be so extremely important. You need Chase Brown to give you everything you've got. You need Jamar Chase to give you everything you've got. Offensively, you have to bring everything to the table the next 2 weeks. But I truly believe this stretch, their fate is decided in the next 2 weeks. I don't think the defense is going to deliver it for them. I would not be surprised if James Cook has a huge game against this Bengals defense, but this is what we're used to with the Bengals, going back to last year down the stretch. You got to score 35 to 40 points to win. That's what it is. That's why you came back, Joe Burrow, but you have it in your hands once again.
You want the weather for this one on Sunday?
Yeah, I'm curious. I didn't look at it.
Kickoff, real feel, 25 degrees.
Yeah.
And there is a chance of snow.
We're breaking fingers catching that ball. It's
Buffalo in December. It's what you'd expect. It's also a good reminder that this is the time of year, as well as the couple weeks prior, where you also have to handicap the weather with some of these games, right?
Yeah.
It's outdoor, and what that's an advantage or disadvantage for teams. We also saw, though, Joe Burrow go into Buffalo in the playoffs, and that Bengals team looked like they were better in the snow and cold than the Bills. Now, that's obviously a different team, but they're not going to be, scared going in there. They know that they can win the game. This opened Bills -6, -6.5. The respected money on the Bengals early. This is down to 5.5. And as we discussed with the defenses, total of 53.5, by far the highest total of any game on Sunday. So 2 good offenses, 2 not great defenses. I think also interesting, though, the Bengals, we discussed, 31st in rush defense, DVOA. The Bills are 30th. So they also have trouble stopping the run. Chase Brown was probably underutilized with Joe Flacco some, and their inability to be as balanced maybe as they wanted before. I think they'll be able to score on the Bills. Really important to see if T. Higgins as well clears concussion protocol, and they have that other receiver outside as well to give them that other matchup. That's when the Bengals are really, really difficult to defend. The Bills' defense hasn't been kind of the same as we would expect. The Bills also have struggled against the spread, as they're 1-3 as a favorite of at least 6 points at home. So not a situation they've done particularly well in this game, 5.5 or 6. And for the Bills, it kind of comes down to one stat. When they score 21 points, they're 8-0. When they don't, they're 0-4. So can you get to 21 points? Okay. I think you can against the Bengals defense. I think they have enough to get this done. Whether or not they cover, I think I'd probably lean to the Bengals there, but I think this is a game. If the Bills, you're a Super Bowl contender, you want to have any shot at the AFC East, which you probably don't anyway, but you want to make the playoffs, this is a game you just have to win. I think they get it done at home.
For the Bengals, their odds of winning the division are amazingly slim, like less than 5%. But if they lose this game, it's basically over. Their chances of making the playoffs, and they're not going to be a wild card. The chances of making the playoffs dip to under 1%, which, of course, you're telling me there's a chance. No, there is no chance if they lose this game. They got to win it. There are other games that we have not gotten to. Rams-Cardinals is interesting, even though the Cardinals are out. Rams always have the Cardinals number, but fascinating what's going to go on there with Jonathan Gannon. Broncos and Raiders, I don't know. We could find a way to make it interesting. Disrespect the Bengals again. Bo Nick says whatever. Titans and Browns. Titans have only 1 win, and it was maybe one of the flukiest wins of all time with that, crazy stuff that happened in Arizona. And this has the number 1 pick also kind of hanging in the balance here, and Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. There's the Saints and the Buccaneers. Bucks are getting healthy. Seahawks and Falcons. I told you, Falcons elimination game. Dolphins and Jets elimination game for the Jets. And then there's the Monday night game. Eagles and Chargers. Jalen Carter, who has the double shoulder surgery. So he's out. And at this moment, as we sit here taping, Justin Herbert is not practicing, still maintaining he's going to try to play on Monday, just a couple of days after having surgery on his hand. So those are the other games, and we are obviously back on Monday for a full Week 14 wrap-up. Time for one more thing, however, before we go to wrap up the week here. C-Rob, what do you got?
So Netflix has given us great content, right? Great sports content. All the, the documentaries, I call docutainment because you get all these stars who get up there and reframe how they want you to look at them. Yes, their own version of events. So December 22nd, Elway is coming out on John Elway. And I'm looking forward to it, but it got me to thinking,
I'm not.
There are fans in their mid-20s who are fans of the NFL who've never seen John Elway play a snap of football, of real live football. He retired in 1998. There are fans in their mid-30s who might have faint memories of John Elway playing for the Denver Broncos. This guy, his career was so made for now and social media. If you consider all the things that happened around John Elway, refusing to go and report to the Baltimore Colts, being drafted in the second round by the New York Yankees, actually hitting over 300 in A-ball for the Yankees, could have been a professional baseball player, one of the biggest arms, if not the biggest arm in the history of the NFL. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch it. And oh, by the way, we're going to see what quarterbacks used to be treated like physically in the NFL 30 years ago.
He was a spectacular player. He ruined my childhood, and I will not watch it. I know the John Elway story quite well. Very fortunate to call his agent who helped engineer the entire Steinbrenner baseball thing and out of Indy and to Denver. Whole behind the scenes thing. Very happy to call Marvin Demoff, one of my dear friends, used to represent me, and he's like a second father to me. The 30 for 30 with the quarterbacks with Elway and Marino, that was a fantastic piece that Ken Rogers did for NFL Films years ago, and I have no doubt that this will be amazing as well. But thanks to 86 and 87 and 89, John Elway ruined my childhood with those 3 AFC Championship game victories. Rich Karlis still did miss the field goal. The kick was no good. Rich Karlis missed the kick that won the 1986 AFC Championship game. Say that again. His wide left kick that missed won the AFC Championship for the Denver Broncos. So I will not watch this, although I support all my dear friends at Netflix working hard behind the scenes. What do you got, Ben?
I was going to say we were doing well on time, Charles, until you brought that up.
I had to tell you that John Elway ruined my childhood. Go ahead.
So I think interesting, right? Sports betting legalized in 2018. Obviously, there was a long legal fight starting back in 2012, going up through the Supreme Court, starting in the state of New Jersey, whether to legalize. Kind of the new hot thing now is prediction markets. And the NFL has taken a stance basically similar to sports betting, which is essentially we're going to wait and see how this plays out. We're not completely sure if it's legal, if it isn't legal. Roger Goodell said this week, quote, "That's not something we're about to enter into regarding prediction markets and whether there would be sponsorships with the NFL. A couple of the prediction markets have had sponsorships with the NHL and obviously a lot of other companies as well. So it's kind of the new topic in the sports betting space. There's been sports betting, there's DFS, there's sweepstakes. Prediction markets is the new big thing and kind of taking the nation by storm. Legal or somewhat legal, I guess I would say, in all 50 states. And so there's been a lot of news revolving around that. Interesting to see the NFL basically take a public stance and say, hey, we're going to wait, just like we did with sports betting. We're going to see how this plays out in the courts, and then we'll deal with it then.
All right, so proceed with caution, at least for now. My one more thing, congratulations to all 32 men who, one for each team, were finalists today, named finalists, their team's nominees for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, which is presented by Nationwide, and they named the winner at NFL Honors the Thursday before the Super Bowl. We've had some of these guys on the show this year, Derrick Henry and Kelvin Beachum, among others. In Cleveland, huge fan of Grant Delpit. He's the Browns nominee here in Los Angeles. Huge fan as well of Kyron Williams. He is the Rams nominee. A little bit here on my soapbox for 30 seconds. We name a winner. I say we, the NFL, names a winner for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award at NFL Honors every year. I don't like that. I realize one person's got to win and you got to give the trophy and someone's got to give the speech. Really, all 32 of these guys deserve to win. They've all been amazing in their community. They are all a huge part of how the NFL gives back and a huge part of how the NFL maintains its presence in the communities and connects with its fans. And all these guys who have been nominated don't do it for the attention, don't do it for the cameras, don't do it for the press release. They do it because it comes from here. Kelvin Beachum last week, who was on. If you go back and watch that interview on our YouTube, you'll see how much giving back inspires him and fuels him. And it's how he gets over a tough loss, not by sitting at home and pouting, but by going out in the community and giving back and seeing the smiles and giving that energy, right? That's why he loves it. All these 32 deserve to win. They are all winners. I know we live in a day and age in which we shun participation trophies in some corners and embrace them in others. This is one for which all 32 deserve an amazing participation trophy. And if the league wants to name one winner, so be it. That's pretty cool as well. And that's my little soapbox on the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, the official, or rather the most prestigious honor in the National Football League. It is a great honor to do this show with both of you, however. C-Rob, Ben, have a fantastic weekend. Remember, our picks are for recreational purposes only, and if any of them are wrong, blame Frank Schwab. That's it.
Yes.
Enjoy your football weekend, and we'll see you Monday on Inside Bet.